27% of people were concerned about buying an e-bike because of battery safety. So that's actually a product we want to offer to the whole industry and say, this is a technical product that sits on the battery, but actually it's an entire safety system that gives customers confidence that your bike, that your battery is safe. So we're trying to sell something that's kind of invisible, which is difficult.
So, hi, we're back on the Modular Podcast. Today we have Nick Bailey, CEO of Boost Bike. Boost Bike is a system of attaching an electric motor to any bike, as I understand, and making it electric, based here out of UK. And there's another project you're working on, which is a battery software solution. So I want to get into that. So thanks for being here, Nick.
Yeah, pleasure. Thank you very much.
So I want to get into your story and how you started Boost Bike and your background. Are you a technical person or just pure entrepreneur? I want to learn all about that. So how did it all start?
Yeah, so my background is engineering. So ever since I was reasonably young, I've just been making and building things. So the whole of Boost started in my shed during COVID, when I had some time having finished another job role. And I was just interested in what was then a much more immature market of e-bikes. So I sort of had this idea that e-bikes were the future of cycling, but they haven't really got the same breadth that they do obviously now. So I didn't know much about them. So I bought like a motor off eBay, just something that was broken down, or sort of secondhand motor, bought some battery systems and circuit boards and started playing around with it. And actually within a fairly short period of time, I was able to bring together components of something that we could convert a bike to electric. And actually the whole thing just really went from there. But so yeah, engineer fiddling in sheds, turning into product.
You make it sound like it was just really easy, like 15 minutes and you're done.
No, it was definitely a good year. I mean, I think it took us 7 or 8 versions of the circuit board to actually make it work properly. You have to kind of build stuff, iterate, try new things, go and try out the bike. Yeah, so it was a fairly long period, but then COVID gave plenty of opportunity for that.
Right. So you were, you released it in the right time during COVID when people were actually looking to get out and ride more bicycles?
Yeah, there was definitely an interest from people like during and slightly after COVID, where they were realizing they had all this free time to go out riding. So the timing was kind of okay, but then the market obviously for bikes went downhill quite dramatically after COVID because people had used money they'd sort of saved to then buy a bike, so they didn't need to buy another bike. So I think what we've also found now is we're converting a lot of bikes that were sold to people during COVID because they don't want to buy new e-bikes. They've already spent the money on perfectly good conventional bike. So actually we've been growing like 30 to 50% per year for the last couple of years, while the rest of the market's been going in the opposite direction.
I was just going to say, it sounds like you're in this kind of awkward marketing position where you're not an e-bike and you're not a traditional bike, but you're like a kit to make an e-bike.
Yeah, well, it's been an interesting thing to market because usually when you've got a product, you want to make it quite prominent. But actually part of the good thing about our system is that it's quite invisible. So people see the bigger size version of it and they just think it's a water bottle sitting on the bike frame. And actually that's actually the battery and the computer that runs the motor all built into that, what looks like a water bottle. And the way we've built the motor, it looks very much like a normal bike as well. So we're trying to sell something that's kind of invisible, which is difficult.
Yeah, and I remember there was a Copenhagen bike.
Yeah, it was a big silver wheel or something like that.
It was much more prominent on the back wheel, and I remember it was on Kickstarter, and it was all going viral, and then suddenly they were just gone. I don't know what happened to them, but maybe you filled that space.
Yeah, there were a couple of brands doing similar things. I think I came from being a cyclist and engineer, so I wanted to build a product that I wanted to use. Whereas I think people who've come at this from maybe a more marketing or pure entrepreneurial background have tried to develop something that's the easiest to sell and the easiest to fit, which is probably on the front wheel of a bike. So yeah, we've gone for the back, and I think that's been very popular for people that want a proper e-bike experience for their existing bike, rather than, I think the front wheel kits can feel like you're kind of being pulled along. It's a different feeling, and you can't, when you ride a bike normally, you can kind of let go of the handlebars if you want to, but you can't do that when the motor's on the front, because the bike does weird things if you do that.
What are the main use cases? Are people commuting to work and they don't want to arrive sweaty, or is it more just for fun? What have you seen?
Well, I think what we're aiming for is the sweet spot between 2 and 10 miles, where people are in a town or city, and most of the time you wouldn't want to cycle 10 miles, but if you've got an e-bike, it becomes viable. You can probably scooter for like 2 to 5 miles, although scootering for 5 miles would be quite a lot. But so I think e-bikes fill that gap, and if that's your commute, that's what e-bikes are good for. So our system is actually good at like town use. It's not designed for putting onto a mountain bike and going straight up hills, like steep off-road hills. But in terms of making it much easier to move around cities, that's mostly what people seem to use it for.
And you have a team here, you said six people?
Yeah, I've got our team in the UK. Yeah.
Cool. So you've also had to learn how to be a CEO and a manager. And how's that going?
Well, I think I'm not a first-time founder, so that helps with,
Okay.
helps with, knowing what you need to do. I think I've seen friends of mine who've started off businesses, and it takes me back to when I was running my first things, like how many kind of procedural things you have to do as a company owner and director just to keep the company from getting sued every 5 minutes. You have to do your tax returns, you have to do VAT, and you have to account for sales and pay staff. Like all of these things are, I think can be really intimidating for a first-time founder. So I'm fortunate that I sort of knew what I needed to do, and we've now got the processes for that kind of nailed. So I also created the ordering system for our e-commerce website. So that meant that we had like a solid platform for e-commerce all the way through.
So I know that, as I understand, e-bikes and bicycles are very focused on retail because of all the education that customers need. They want to know, is this bike, does it fit me? And then as far as e-bikes, there's a lot of technical things for them to learn. But you're selling it on e-commerce. So is that working for your customers?
Good question. We started off hoping to sell mostly through bike shops. So we have a network of about 120 bike shops in the UK that use the system, that buy from us and build their own wheels or install for customers. So they do the majority of that, of the kind of hand holding that customers need. So for the first year, like last year, we were selling 2/3 to shops and about 1/3 our own units. This year, because our marketing has kind of changed, I guess, we're now starting to sell, I think, the majority of numbers of systems directly to the public for them to install themselves. But that does mean that we have to be better at doing support, like explaining what they're going to need to be able to do before we sell the product. And then if they have challenges at any point, that we're able to support them rapidly. But I think a conversion system is more difficult than an e-bike, because you've got to take a bike and you've got to take a conversion system and sort of merge them together. And that's why when we looked at mid-sized bikes where there isn't really an obvious bike for us to work with, we actually thought it would make more sense for us to create our own bike from scratch, because then it's much easier to sell it as a finished product rather than something that people need to modify themselves.
Yeah, that's pretty interesting. I mean, I know that the business model works way better when you're selling direct to consumer, cut out the middleman, but then you're responsible for all that customer support and customers who have trouble installing it. But I think it's a good trade-off for you that you're willing to make.
Well, I think it's a really interesting question around pricing, which is a whole area
Mhm.
in itself. So if you sell through a retail partner, you're going to lose 30 or 40% of your margin to the retailer. So if you start selling your product at a really low price, because that's going to quickly get you sales direct to customer, there isn't a 30 or 40% margin that you can then offer retailers, or you offer that margin to them, and suddenly you as a manufacturer aren't making any money. So I think when you're testing the product at an early stage, you've got to test your pricing to say, this is a realistic pricing that customers are prepared to pay, that gives my retailer a margin, that gives me a margin, and pays for 10 or 15% marketing. And if it's relatively easy to sell a product that's underpriced, because at that point you're just giving people money. So I've seen lots of companies coming to market where they discount heavily and they set an expectation of what the price should be of their product. And when they come to actually try and make any, even cover their costs some of the time, they've set the expectations with the customer that that's what their product is worth.
Right.
So we just said, this is our price.
What is the MSRP for the boost bike?
It's about £650 for a complete system for the customers to buy, whether they buy direct from us or they buy from a shop, and they'll pay a little bit extra for the shop to fit it as well.
Is it are some of your customers looking to keep their old bike because they love the aesthetic, the design?
Yeah, that's definitely part of it. We had this one of our sort of marketing, I don't know what you would call it, like centerpieces, was the idea that every bike had a story, that people keep bikes for much longer than they should do, as it were, because people have like an emotional attachment to this was the bike I got when I moved to a town, or this was the bike, this is the bike I met my partner cycling or something. So the idea that bike, that they're kind of part of the journey of that bike, and you actually have stories and adventures with your bike. So our sort of broader marketing is to say you get to keep the bike you've already got, and the one that you feel comfortable with and you've got some attachment to, but make it last longer, bring it into a new life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I have that attachment with my bikes.
There we go. That's a really good example.
They all have names.
Right. Okay. I've not done that.
So that's pretty cool. And then now you have this new business. I don't know. Is it new? Where you're helping.
I'll get them. I've got a little circuit board for you. I thought that might be interesting. It's in my pocket.
Always fun to have engineers on the
Yeah,
show.
actually, like
bring toys.
Happen to have a little circuit board in my pocket. Wave that. There we go. So that's what that is. Not that it looks like anything, but it's that's what you would have in every lithium battery on an e-bike or on a even on like a power tool. And that is essentially a circuit board that checks that the battery is running in the way that it should do. So when we started Boost, we struggled to find a battery system that we really had any idea what it was doing. So you've got all this energy stored in a battery, and if parts of the battery start to do anything strange, you have no visibility of what's actually going on with the battery. So what we've developed with that board that's essentially a complete little computer with a radio module on it, which plugs directly into the battery itself. And that transmits the data about the battery to your phone, but also to wall scanners that we can put into like bike parks. So that's actually a product we want to offer to the whole industry and say, this is a technical product that sits on the battery, but actually it's an entire safety system that gives customers confidence that your battery is safe.
Yeah, because batteries tend to blow up and catch fire. And
well, it's an interesting one. Some of them do, but as a consumer, you have absolutely no real idea of whether you've got a good battery or a bad battery. And if you bought a battery 1 or 2 years ago and it's got wet or it's been dropped or misused, that what was a safe battery can suddenly become unsafe. So what we're trying to do with this is to say, with this system on board, we we are able to tell customers that this is like a blanket standard that everybody who has this system has to have a degree of traceability for their products, that we will do. We'll make sure that the cells that we expect to see in a battery are in the battery, and that we'll do sample testing of batteries in market. And then it's a way of saying to customers, whatever brand you're buying from, whether it's Boost or other brands that we're talking to, that you can have confidence that this is actually a decent product that you've bought and a safe product.
Yeah, it's like gives customers the ability to check the battery health.
Yeah,
I guess, right?
Yeah, and the scanners may take it a stage beyond that, because lots of people will charge up their bike in their garage or in a communal area. So they won't have any real visibility of what's going on with that battery, especially over the winter or when they're not using it. So this system, because we also offer the scanner, can actively email the customer to say your battery needs charging, or you've left it switched on, or there's some problem developing with your battery. But that notification can happen by email or by text message, rather than you having to go and look at the screen on your e-bike.
And this was developed in-house at
Yeah.
Boost Bike team?
Yep, that's all developed by me and a couple of other engineers, and with the support from a Cambridge design agency who cross-checked the way that it works. So it's a good little board.
Yeah. So, and then how are you going to distribute this? Is it a B2B play where you ask them to buy a large quantity, install them, so they can then provide a better product to their customers?
Yeah, pretty much. So the manufacturing cost of that to brands is under $15 per board, and the cost of the equivalent generic unit's about $7 or $8. So you're looking at an incremental parts cost to about $5 per battery to bring it into the system. So suddenly you've got a generic battery that customers didn't trust, but now, because you've added an additional $5 of materials on top of it, it's become something that is part of this, what we aim to be global safety standard.
When is this being released, or is it already released?
That's one of the first engineering samples. So we're starting to send samples to various companies at the moment. We've got interest from a big scooter manufacturer, other companies in the e-bike space, also looking at aerospace, a couple of aerospace companies who want to be able to check that the batteries on drones are actually healthy as well. So you can actually check that a battery is ready to go at the point you actually want to use a drone.
So then what inspired you to create this? Was it just like the first business, solving your own problem? You wanted to understand the battery health of the Boost bike?
Absolutely. I actually started this project because we weren't really happy with the BMSs we had like 3 years ago, battery management systems. And then we found one that was acceptable. So I sort of then ditched that for a year. And then there was as we started to get stories about fires for e-bikes in the UK, it reminded me that I'd started off this project and not finished it. And so actually, why don't we take that battery system, have it as a separate product that's not really part of Boost, and just offer it more generally. But the radio module becomes something where if your phone will scan other people's batteries and that will send it back to our central system, we can offer this sort of universal system for keeping batteries, whether it be e-bike batteries, power tool batteries, kind of, any battery of a decent size. And that create this kind of universal product. So it then took another year to get it to the point where it's actually usable as a unit. But yeah, solving our own problem, but then just solving a technical problem doesn't really create a product. You actually have to match that up with a genuine customer need. So I think the customers have a need to know their batteries are safe. But I mean, one of the things that brought me back to this is that a friend of mine wanted to buy a cargo bike, and he ended up buying a cargo bike with a Bosch or Shimano motor. I can't remember which one, but because he trusted one of those brands to have that battery in his house, and he could have bought a cargo bike from many other manufacturers for like at least £1,000 cheaper, but he wasn't confident to save himself £1,000 because he didn't really trust that the battery was safe enough in his house. So what we feel is that there's a whole segment of customers that are actually having to pay too much money for a product because they've been sort of educated and scared that they have to spend that much money.
They think if they buy sort of the generic brand from China, that it might just blow up in their house at night.
And yeah, this is a really, this takes us on to like what the bike industry is doing as a whole. You've got these premium European and Asian brands like, well, Giant, which is kind of Taiwan Chinese brand. That's a trusted brand and is quite a premium product. And then you've got like lots and lots of brands that we have no knowledge of that brand in the UK and Europe, but there are just so many companies making bikes, but they're to the UK and EU consumers, they're just all exactly the same. They're brands that they don't recognize.
Right.
So they don't have any, even though those bikes, some of them are terrible, but some of them are actually very good, and they've got no way of convincing customers of their benefits because the brand is just so unknown.
Right. But if they install the battery IQ, at least they can show this is safe, even though we're not a known brand.
Yeah. And I think so I think an impediment to people buying e-bikes is that they're too expensive, but they're also too expensive because they're kind of forced to spend too much money buying the premium one.
Right. I get it. Yeah. So do you have the data on exploding batteries in e-bikes? Because I'm curious how aware the customer is of this problem and how much, like you just said, they're overpaying because they only trust the brands. But I'm curious how often this comes up in the conversation with customers.
I think there was a survey we found fairly recently. We're going to run our own survey in a few weeks, but I think 27% of people were concerned about buying an e-bike because of battery safety. So whether or not that was their main reason for not buying an e-bike, but like that's over a quarter of people were concerned about it, which to me seems like a really big number. I looked at the stats for fires, and I think it was 0.1% of fires actually have anything to do with e-bikes or e-scooters or batteries. It was like a really small, of the number of actual fires that happen, it was a really small proportion, but yet that 0.1%, if I've got the numbers right, is causing 27% of people to be concerned about the safety of the system.
Yeah.
So what we feel is that brands that we work with that offer this are able to come into a market with a much lower price product for the customers and actually distinguish themselves from the other like generic no-name brands.
Yeah. I was in New York a month ago, and I hadn't been to New York for about 7 years. And one of the coolest things that's new about New York now are all the e-bikes.
Yeah.
And it looks like that it's not people on regular bikes who have bought e-bikes, but it's people who are probably taking the bus or driving cars who are then riding e-bikes. And so it's a pretty cool revolution to see happening in real time.
Yeah.
And I think based on your sales, 30 to 50% year over year, you said?
Yeah.
The demand is clearly there. So this is cool. And I think this is one of these unsexy businesses where somebody just has to do it.
Yeah. And I think we financed this through the fact we had a company already. I think it would have been difficult to go and raise money for this battery management system. It's just, as you say, it's not sexy, but there are 1 billion plus power tool batteries that get made in a year. There are at least tens of millions of e-bike batteries, probably hundreds of millions. And with this business model, it's like $1 or $2 per unit that we're looking to net profit per BMS.
Yeah, highly scalable.
Highly scalable. And most of those that'll come straight out of factory. Multiple factories can make that at scale, and it's cost competitive with a completely generic no-name unit.
And you got the patent on it?
We've got the Battery IQ trademark on it. It's one of those things where an intelligent engineering company could copy the circuit boards I mean, it's, it's neat and it's very small and all that, and it's low cost, but it's about the fact that every one of those circuit boards gets entered into our data system at the point that it's created. So if somebody creates even a clone of that unit, an identical clone, its ID won't be recognized by our system.
Oh, that's very clever.
So there's just, even if you copy literally, the whole thing and rip off our software, the fact that it doesn't have that ID and the security keys matching up with our web platform. So that's the protection, but that's how we provide that confidence to customers that we know exactly which cells are in that battery and at what point they were built, and we have that traceability and relationship with the customer. So I think people are always concerned they want to see a patent, but most patents are impossible to defend and don't have much value. But if we have relationships with multiple brands and we're selling tens, hundreds of thousands of units, and they're all part of this de facto system for battery safety, then that's worth a lot more than any IP.
Right. That's how you build a moat. So what's the future look like? Are you going to run these two businesses in parallel or integrate them with each other? What does the next 1 to 5 years look like?
Yeah, so I think with Boost, we're going to continue looking, that'll continue to be a bike-focused business, particularly focused on urban mobility, lightweight, efficient bikes and e-bikes. So that, I think the Boost brand is quite good at giving that sense of, making your life a bit boosted, just a bit easier and a bit better. Like, I think that's kind of what we've managed to get people to feel about that brand. I think it would be very confusing to try and turn that brand into like a battery safety brand. It's just, it's not really compatible. So the aim is that the Battery IQ will remain a completely separate business. The technology that becomes available through Battery IQ is offered to Boost, but it's also offered to other partners doing similar things, because actually, as an industry, this solves a lot of problems for the whole industry, which benefits, it kind of lifts the tide for everybody.
Yeah. So you're kind of going to become a hero in this industry once this launches.
Well, I think the challenge with it is going to be to convince battery manufacturers that we're not looking to be a threat to the ones that are concerned about safety. If they're open about how they're building things, which actually most of them are, the ones that I've dealt with that actually want to sell in UK and Europe, this enables them to say that they are a brand that's concerned about quality, and they've spent a very small amount of extra money on the build cost for that battery. I mean, it's like the cost of a single cell in extra cost, and you've got this ability to have a brand that will continue to build up. So I think in an ideal world, Battery IQ becomes a global brand in its own right, focused entirely on just your battery is safe. We have done all the due diligence to make sure that that thing you're bringing into your house is completely safe. There's almost like an imaginary bubble around the battery saying, whether it's on a scooter, whether it's being used to power your lawnmower, we've made sure that that thing is not going to cause you any danger. And then you can put it in whatever device you want to.
Yeah, it seems like it should almost be a mandate by the government to have one of these.
Well, I think we're working with OPSS in the UK and also one of the standards agencies, and UL are doing some stuff in New York on this as well. So you can't really mandate a government to force a particular product, but I think that what we'll do with this is provide an enhanced functionality on top of the existing standards. So battery passporting, where a battery has a unique passport number, is becoming necessary, or is becoming mandated for batteries more than 2 kilowatt hours, which is like fairly big battery. Whereas most e-bike batteries are much smaller than that. But I think with this kind of technology, we can say, well, why don't you start passporting small batteries?
Right.
And I think we're probably 2 years ahead of anybody else's thinking on this. So we've basically got 2 years to establish that, I guess, moat, or that that awareness that you could spend £1 million developing this yourself if you were a company, or we could just do it for you, and then you get all that credibility built in, because you're not trying to do it as a. So let's imagine if you're a bike manufacturer, you don't really get any by creating your own battery standard. It's not convincing anyone because you're marking your own homework at that point. This is about saying it's in our interest as a specific brand and a specific identity to only do things in a safe way.
Right. Yeah, it's a cool story, and it's going to be exciting to see it develop and see this come out. And
Yeah,
as I told you earlier, we're based in Taiwan at the epicenter of the development of all this e-bikes, and this could be something that takes off over there very quickly. So
I think it. Once we get, I think the path we need to probably take is finding retail partners in the UK who want their customers to have this technology, or the customers start asking for it. And I think that will have them pull through from the brands. But I think it'll rapidly get to the point where UK retailers will say, well, what's your solution to battery safety? And brand manufacturers in Taiwan and elsewhere that want to sell into European retailers will say, well, actually, this is our safety solution built in.
Yeah, it's another selling point.
Yeah. So it's what distinguishes one e-bike from a different e-bike from a factory next door to it, to the point where it becomes, well, why wouldn't you have that? Because it's the standard.
$5, right?
Yeah, exactly.
All right. Very cool stuff, Nick. So thanks for coming and sharing a lot. And yeah, we're really excited to get you on the show today. Let's keep in touch and see how it goes with the battery IQ and Boost Bike.
It's going to be a busy few years, I think.
I think so. All right. Thanks.
Thank you very much.